Good morning and welcome to ALA's Friday Community Scheme Training, Part 4. This morning we are looking at Prescribed Management Rule 24 about the administrative and reserve funds. Before the new Act started in October 2016, one only had the administrative fund, which is the levy fund that the owners pay into in order to pay the expenses of the body corporate. But what was happening in South Africa was many schemes were being neglected in terms of maintenance and repair. And when they needed maintenance and repair, they had to raise special levies on the owners, which were big financial burdens. So the legislature came along and introduced the reserve fund. Now what happens is every month owners contribute money towards the repair and maintenance of the complex by way of paying into the reserve fund. So that's what we're going to look at this morning. Alright, Prescribed Management Rule 24 in brackets 1. The administrative fund, referred to in section 3(1)(a) of the Act, must be used to fund the operating expenses of the body corporate for a particular financial year. So that would be the everyday expenses, maybe the pool cleaner, the other staff of the body corporate, the insurance for the complex, if anything breaks down in the complex, the day-to-day expenses to run the complex. 2. The reserve fund maintained in terms of section 3(1)(b) of the Act must be used for the implementation of the maintenance, repair and replacement plan of the body corporate referred to in Rule 22. It's always important when reading this management rule to look back at Management Rule 22, which is all about the maintenance, repair and replacement plan. We know already about that. That's a 10-year plan that needs to be presented at the annual general meeting to the owners of the complex, and it sets out the 10-year plan to look after the capital items in the complex, whether it's the swimming pool, the generator, the roofing, the cabling, the piping, etc. So always read this rule together with Management Rule 22. Sub-rule 3. The following amounts must be paid into the reserve fund. So this is how the reserve fund makes its money to implement a 10-year maintenance, repair and replacement plan. A. Any part of the annual levies designated as being for the purpose of reserves or the maintenance, repair and replacement plan. B. Any amounts received under an insurance policy in respect of damage or destruction of property for which the body corporate is responsible. So if any common property gets damaged and the insurance pays out, that money must go into the reserve fund. Any interest earned on the investment of the money in the reserve fund. Any other amounts determined by the body corporate. So the owners could determine that another amount also be paid into the reserve fund. Maybe the body corporate wins a big litigation case against a neighbouring complex for a certain legal claim it has. They can determine that that money goes into the reserve fund as well. And all other body corporate income must be paid into the administrative fund. So if it's not one of these 4 items, then it's compulsory. The legislature uses the word must to be paid into the administrative fund, not into the reserve fund. Sub-rule 4. Money must be paid out of the administrative fund in accordance with trustees' resolutions and the approved budget for the administrative fund. Just a reminder here by the legislature that it's the trustees who control the body corporate's affairs and the administrative fund by making resolutions. If they want to spend money, they don't need the owner's permission. It's a trustee's decision to pay the staff and pay the day-to-day expenses of the complex. 5. Money may be paid out of the reserve fund, A, at any time in accordance with trustees' resolutions and the approved maintenance, repair and replacement plan. So the trustees make resolutions to spend the reserve fund money on items in the maintenance, repair and replacement plan. So in the plan would, for example, be the fibre cables and equipment, or the DSTV cables and equipments. If that goes down and 20,000 Rand is required to fix it today, the trustees can resolve it and a cheque can be drawn out of the reserve fund to pay those expenses. B, if the trustees resolve that such a payment is necessary for the purpose of an urgent maintenance, repair or replacement expense, which purpose includes without limitation to comply with an order of court or an adjudicator. So if the trustees make a resolution to pay an urgent maintenance, repair or replacement expense, maybe a burst water pipe in the corridors, even though it's not in the maintenance, repair and replacement plan, because it's urgent, if they resolve so, then they can pay that expense out of the reserve fund. So one is saying to comply with an order of court. Let's say the trustees refuse to spend it and an owner gets an order of court, then the trustees would resolve to spend the money to comply with the order of court. 2, to repair, maintain or replace any property for which the body corporate is responsible where there are reasonable grounds to believe that an immediate expenditure is necessary to ensure safety or prevent significant loss or damage to persons or property. That's the next item. That's to ensure safety or prevent significant loss or damage. 3, to repair any property for which the body corporate is responsible where the need for the repairs could not have been reasonably foreseen in preparing the maintenance, repair and replacement plan. So if they couldn't reasonably have foreseen to put a certain item or for the repair of a certain item in the plan, they can still use reserve fund money. 4, to enable the body corporate to obtain adequate insurance for property that the body corporate is required to insure. So you can also use reserve fund money if the trustees resolve, if item 4 applies, provided that the trustees must report to the members on any such expenditure as soon as possible after it is made. So basically what subrule 5B is teaching us is that there's 4 cases where the trustees can spend money out of the reserve fund. And this is very important because complexes in affluent areas might have reserve funds to the equivalent of 5, 10, 15, 20 million rand. So it's very important for the legislature to set out these 4 paragraphs to tell us when the trustees can use reserve fund money when not in accordance with the 10-year maintenance plan. 5A is when it's in accordance with the 10-year maintenance plan, and 5B is when it's not in accordance with the 10-year maintenance plan. So the Rule 5 ends with a proviso that as soon as possible the trustees have to report to the owners on what they've done, because they've used reserve fund money not in accordance with the 10-year maintenance plan. So they would either need to call a general meeting or send out a circular to the owners reporting on the expenditure. The final rule in PMR 24, expenditure under subrule 5B, those are the 4 circumstances, must not exceed 1, the amount necessary for the purpose for which it is expended, and 2, any limitation imposed by the body corporate on expenditure. Remember, the owners can impose a limit on the trustees on how much they can spend without requiring the owner's permission. Most owners don't give their trustees a limit, but if you wish to use the limit, then at an owners meeting, owners can impose a limit on trustees for what they can spend on expenses. 6B, expenditure under subrule 5B must comply with any restrictions imposed or directions given by members. That's what we've just spoken about. The last thing to remember is that when reading Prescribed Management Rule 24, you must always read it with Section 3 of the Sectional Title Schemes Management Act, specifically subrule 1. So always take a look at section 3.1 of the STSMA, and that basically provides for the establishment of the administrative fund and the reserve fund. So read it in conjunction with this management rule. If you have any questions, feel free to contact me on inquiries@alattorneys.co.za or 011 326 8050. Please also subscribe to our YouTube channel. Don't miss out on any video uploads by clicking on the bell icon. Have a super Friday.